We're going to jump over into Final Cut now. And again, this is what we're going for here. This lower third graphic that is on top of the reflection of Amsterdam. Okay? So I have duplicated the timeline sequence here with everything except the lower third graphic. Okay? Hang in there, you guys. You're doing great. We're about to get to the fun part. So in Final Cut Pro, I'm just going to right mouse click in this gray area and do an import. And I'm going to go for a file. Okay, now here's BIF ID. I have two of them in here because I did an experiment before I recorded this one. I can bring it in and then I can give it the double click, and of course, here I am. I could have done this better and spent more time, but it looks beautiful. Okay, so now I want to put this thing in the timeline on top of my video image and my Welcome to Amsterdam graphic. Okay, so I'm going to target that track, and I'm going to go ahead and override it onto track. What track is that? Track 4. Okay, so here I am, a little bit larger than life, right? I don't need to be this big. So to resize myself, I'm going to turn on my image and wireframe here, which mine's already active. So I'll make sure that I turn that on, and that way I can get over here, and if I have a little patience and a little dexterity, I can grab these corner handles and resize myself. Move myself kind of down to the bottom. Alright. Now, if you can't get to those handles easily, you can double click the graphic in the timeline and it loads it up into your left hand view or window. And then I could come over here under my motion tab and manipulate myself too. Maybe like rotate it or something, but I don't really want to do that. Okay, so if you can't grab the handles, here manually, then double click on it, load it up into your viewer, open up the motion tab, and experiment with the numeric controls as opposed to like the manual controls. Alright, so that looks pretty good, Might need a drop shadow, right? So I'll double click it, make sure it's loaded up here, go to my motion tab, click on drop shadow. Watch over here, watch my image. It's subtle, but it makes me pop off the screen a little bit. Alright, so that's pretty good. I'm going to hit save because I haven't saved in a while. Now I'm going to make some text that says, edited by, Will Ferrell or Biff Ferrell or whatever your name's going to be. My name's William Ferrell, but my nickname is Biff, B-I-F-F. So I'm going to go back to the video tab, and your text generator is down here at the bottom under text, and then you have all these different text generators. You could also use Boris, which is kind of a souped-up text generator that's got some 3D elements. You could make these graphics in Photoshop, right? The text that says edited by, but I'm going to do a hybrid. I think it's going to be quicker and maybe just easier to do it in Final Cut because then I can move it around a little bit easier. So I'm going to click on the drop down and go into text. And I'll probably choose outline text so it just pops off the screen. And it loads up sample text here, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and edit that into the timeline, okay? And I'm going to put an in point and an out point around these clips. So I'll hit edit. And this is kind of a good habit to get into, is putting your text in the timeline before you spend too much time editing it. Because if I edit the text up here, it's still kind of attached to this generator's source. So then if the phone rings and I do something and I load up like another video clip, it'll erase all that work. But if I put it in the timeline first and then double click it, it loads it up from the timeline. This takes some getting used to. Okay, but you'll figure it out. So again, if I double click an image in the timeline or an asset in the timeline, it loads it up into the viewer, and then I can manipulate it, I'm going to click on the text, sample text, click on controls, and then I'll just say, edited by, maybe capital E, and then my name. Well, I'll stick with Biff since the other one was Biff. I have a couple different names. Okay, so then I'm going to align it left, or maybe I will make it bold italic. Yeah, and then I will align it left. And of course it is humongous, so I'll make it like 22. Okay, and then if you want to move it around. You can click and drag it with the center tab. So if I'm in controls and I click on the center crosshair, I can move it around, okay? The other way to move it around is to actually move the screen, the image and wireframe around. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it can leave artifacts on the screen, not so much in Final Cut Pro, but in some of the other editing apps. So just kind of watch out for that. But, you know, there it is. And I would, of course, need to render this, but it's already rendered over here. So, you know, this just gives your friends a little bit of an idea of who edited that awesome, you know, Amsterdam documentary or your 30-second commercial for the skate shop or the snowboarders or whichever one we're doing.